Okay, welcome everybody. So China has built over 50,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, more than the rest of the world combined, while California has spent nearly 2 decades building just a small section, with no trains running yet. Something is fundamentally different about how China builds, and it's not just centralized control. So what explains the difference, and could other countries actually do the same? So when I was living in China, I saw construction everywhere, with new subway lines opening frequently, and high-speed rail expanding every year. And I saw entire new districts and neighborhoods appearing quickly out of nowhere. But now I've come back to America, and again I see mostly repairs and maintenance instead of new projects, with long approval timelines and projects taking decades. And also Europe is wealthy, but still slow with construction of infrastructure and buildings. And all these projects are very expensive, and there's delays from approvals, environmental review, and local opposition. So China has built the world's largest high-speed rail network in about a decade, but Western countries struggle to complete one major line. So the common explanation is that China has a centralized system with fewer groups that can block a project. Also, there's fewer lawsuits and delays. So therefore, it's easier to push projects through. So that explanation sounds reasonable, but that isn't the whole story. But centralized authority does make some things easier because decisions can be made faster, and once a decision is made, it's harder to stop. But centralized control alone doesn't explain how China is able to complete construction projects so quickly. Many centralized countries do not build fast, like Russia today, parts of the Middle East, and many developing countries. And history shows that democracies can build fast too, like Britain and the United States during the Industrial Revolution, in Europe rebuilding after World War II, and also Japan, South Korea, and Singapore during their own periods of rapid growth. So the pattern that starts to appear is that fast construction often happens during catch-up development, when growth is urgent, when a system is focused on building, and when resources are being mobilized. So politics matters, but institutions and incentives matter too. So to understand China, we need to look at how the system is set up to build. So China's system is designed for large-scale construction, with the central government setting national priorities and local governments executing projects. And also there are state-controlled banks which provide financing, and there's government control of land, which removes a major bottleneck. And there are incentives for local officials. Promotions are tied to measurable economic growth. So cities in China compete to attract investment, because delivering infrastructure helps advance careers. And also, there is a land system in China. Local governments control land rights. Revenue from land sales funds infrastructure, and there's fewer long legal battles over property. Also, there's a financial system. State banks can fund projects private investors would not touch. And long-term planning is more accepted in China. And large projects move forward without waiting on private markets. So the result, faster decisions at every level, coordinated construction possible across cities, and mega projects become routine rather than exceptional. So institutions and incentives make speed possible, but industrial capacity and engineering talent make it sustainable. So China has the world's largest industrial base. China produces massive amounts of steel, cement, machinery, and construction equipment. Also, China has domestic supply chains that reduce cost and delivery time, so there's no need to rely on imports for major projects. And also, there are large construction companies in China that are state-owned firms, experienced with mega projects, and they have decades of continuous building experience, and they are able to work on multiple projects simultaneously. And China has engineering talent at scale. China has a huge number of engineers trained every year, and they all have their specialized fields, like high-speed rail, tunneling, bridges, and airports. So talent can be concentrated where most needed. So in China, there is industrial capacity, engineering talent, and coordination, which makes fast, large-scale construction become routine. So what seems extraordinary elsewhere is normal in China. So China, though, didn't invent its approach to rapid development. It studied what worked elsewhere and scaled it up. So in the late 1970s, China was still poor, largely agrarian, so there was an urgent need to modernize. So China learned from other countries, like Japan, which experienced rapid post-war industrial growth, partly because of heavy infrastructure investment and close government industry cooperation, and Japan's Shinkansen high-speed train directly inspired China's high-speed rail ambitions. Deng Xiaoping wrote it in 1978, later said it felt like being pushed by the wind. The speed and power of Japan's Shinkansen left a strong impression on Deng Xiaoping. Also, Singapore had an influence on China's economic development, with Singapore's export-oriented manufacturing, special economic zones, and efficient bureaucracy and long-term planning. So China adapted the lessons with Shenzhen modeled on Singapore-style zones, manufacturing first strategy similar to Japan, and infrastructure treated as a backbone of economic growth, not just as a byproduct. So China isn't inventing something unprecedented, it's applying proven ideas at massive scale with urgency and resources. But even with the right systems and ideas, China's scale makes its rapid building almost impossible to replicate elsewhere. To put in perspective, Japan has about 125 million people. Singapore only has 6 million people, but China has over 1.4 billion people, and it covers a huge chunk of the Asian mainland. So scale gives China advantages, with costs spread across a massive population. Also, there is a large domestic market which justifies projects that would be uneconomical elsewhere. And the workforce is deep enough to staff dozens of mega projects simultaneously. And projects connecting two Chinese cities to serve tens of millions of people. The same project logic in smaller countries doesn't have the same payoff. Economic justification that works at Chinese scale often fails elsewhere. And also China had a timing advantage. Core infrastructure was built in China during the 1990s, 2000s globalization boom. Manufacturing investment surged, creating both resources and need. And this gave China a unique window with cheap labor, political stability, and urgent development. So no other country combines population, institutional setup, industrial base, and timing in the same way. Scale isn't just bigger numbers, it fundamentally changes what's possible. But building fast comes with trade-offs, and China has accepted a few risks that other countries usually avoid. So China often builds ahead of demand, with entire new cities, airports, and rail lines being constructed. Sometimes underused at first, sometimes fills up quickly. And also there's debt and financing considerations, with large projects financed through state banks and local government borrowing. Some economists argue China has overinvested relative to short-term returns, but local governments are under pressure to keep construction moving. And China has a different philosophy from the West. China prioritizes preparation and future growth over immediate efficiency, and China accepts that not every project will be immediately successful. And in China, the long-term perspective justifies short-term underperformance, which is in contrast with the Western approach, where Westerners build only when demand is proven, with more debate and planning before committing. And also Westerners generally have less tolerance for debt finance, speculation. Neither approach is right or wrong, just different priorities and risk tolerance. So could other countries build like China? The short answer is not easily. Some parts are transferable. Long-term planning, industrial policy, engineering education, and treating infrastructure as a growth strategy. But other parts are much harder. Land system, state financing, decades of mega project experience, and China's sheer scale. Centralized control isn't enough. China combined timing, talent, institutions, and industrial capacity in a rare way. To build like China, other countries would need more than faster approvals. They'd have to rethink industry, institutions, training, and urgency, which is a tremendous challenge. So thank you everybody so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I have many more coming just like it. And also maybe leave a comment if you would. Do you think other countries could build like China? I would like to know. And thanks again for watching. I'll see everybody for the next video.